If you have ever played a game of Jenga, then you know exactly what it's like to be a teacher. In Jenga, the idea is to remove as many blocks as possible without having the tower to fall down. And the last person that pulls out the wrong block and the tower falls, they lose. In this video, we're going to talk about how the essential blocks of education have been removed. And even though we have an education system, the fact of the matter is that it's wobbling and it's only going to get worse, and it will eventually collapse. For several decades, the so-called reformers and the policymakers, they've been pulling out the foundational blocks to see just how much the tower will bend without breaking. And we're going to talk about all 5 of those blocks that have been pulled out. Now, here's the good news. It's not the teacher's fault. Teachers, you're doing just fine. You're not doing anything wrong. But the bad news is this, is that the teacher is the one who's standing inside the tower while it wobbles. And it's going to be the teacher that's inside the tower when it eventually falls, and it will fall. The very first block that's been pulled out is the removal of predictable discipline that has led to the conversation trap. We have moved away from traditional consequences that teach cause and effect. Instead, what we've shifted to is conversations that often just defer the problem until a later date. But the reality is this: when a student disrupts the learning of 30 others and is sent back to class with a reflection sheet and a snack, the authority of the teacher has been completely undermined. And without a foundation of predictable discipline from the administration, the entire burden of order falls on the shoulders of the teachers. And the most common thing that our administrators want to say to us is they want to guilt us with the relationship trap. Educators are constantly told that if they just build a relationship with the student, then the behavior will somehow solve itself. It causes the teacher to think, well, there must be something wrong with me. There must be something that I'm not doing right, or must not know how to get along with kids because I'm doing everything that I can here to build a relationship, and yet absolutely nothing is changing. And so here's the hard truth. You can be the most caring, relational teacher in the world, and there are just simply some students that you cannot build a relationship with, and some students simply will not comply. And there are 3 reasons for that. Number 1 is self-interest. These students are simply focused on what they want, when they want it, in the moment, over the needs of everybody else in the classroom. It is just simple selfishness. Number 2 is a lack of investment. Some students simply don't want to learn. They don't want to get anything out of their time at school. They don't want to get 0 out of it. And number 3 is the authority gap. If a student does not respect their parents or other adults in their life, there is no way that they will ever respect the authority of the teacher. They do not just come to school and magically respect the people at school. Block number 2 that has been removed: the integrity of grading and failure. And I want to call this the death of a deadline, because what we've seen in education is this massive shift to giving a minimum of 50% policies. A student gets half credit for doing absolutely or literally nothing. And we also have this thing called standard-based grading, which is a topic all of its own, but that removes the idea of a firm deadline. And what the results are is when we remove the floor of a 0, we remove the ceiling of achievement. If there are no consequences for doing absolutely nothing, and the consequences for doing nothing are absolutely the same as doing something, then the incentive to try completely evaporates. And we do all these things because we don't want to cause the student harm from failure. But here's the thing. Failure is not harm. Failure is information. When you get into the real world, students, if you're listening out there, and teachers, you hold firm to this, failure is a diagnostic tool. It's not harm. Failure tells a person where they need to grow. It shows us dramatically changes that we need to make in our life or that we need to make in our approach. And by shielding students from failure in school, we're depriving them of the data that they need to make improvements. Not failing students or not allowing students to fail, that's the real harm, and that's the real injustice. Failure is good. Students need to be allowed and they need to be able to fail. So block number 3, a loss of professional autonomy and taking on the role of a professional technician. We've moved away from trusting teachers as highly trained experts, and we've transitioned to treating them as if they're entry-level technicians. And what I mean by that is we're seeing a rise of scripted, canned curriculums and these rigid pacing guides that intends to do the teacher's primary job. It's more than just trying to keep them on track, and you're no longer trying to teach, but you're trying to follow instructions. And what has happened is that the science of compliance has taken over the art of teaching, and we've replaced the art of teaching by saying on such and such day, you got to be on page 42, and on Tuesdays, this is what you got to do. And in those curriculums now, this is what you have to read today. And you can see by that process, absolutely, there is no student that's going to learn math at the same pace as the curriculum or as the same pace of the pacing model. And students don't learn math or history or ELA or anything else on the same schedule. They're all different learners, and it takes different things to get them from point A to point B. But what's happening, teachers are being treated like a delivery driver, as if we're delivering a product. When compliance is valued over comprehension, the human element of teaching dies, and you're essentially being asked to deliver the mail to a house that's on fire. Now, what sense does that make? Block number 4 that's been removed is the removal of pencil and paper in favor of screens and dopamine. Every single day when we walk into the classroom, we are competing with TikTok. We're competing with Snapchat. We're competing with an algorithm that gives a hit of dopamine every 15 seconds. And we expect a kid to come to school and struggle with complex texts, complex math for 6 to 7 hours a day. That is a structural mismatch. The brain of the 2026 teenager is not capable of retaining attention as long as what is necessary in the classroom. And what makes that even worse is as schools, we then give them a Chromebook and we put it in front of them and we just exacerbate the problem. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't use technology. I absolutely think that we should use technology. But the research is clear that when pencil goes to paper, the brain is wired differently. It has a different and profound effect upon the learner than does the technology that we're using today. The 5th block that has been removed is the parent-teacher partnership, and it's been turned into the partner versus the adversary relationship because of the defensive parent. In previous years, there was a shared reality between the home and the school. If a teacher called home, the parent's first instinct, in particular whenever I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, is, what did my kid do? And I'm going to help you solve this problem. Today, when you call home, a lot of times the initial response is, what did you do to my kid? Or what did you say that caused my kid to smart off or to be disrespectful? Or what did somebody else do that caused my kid to act out of line? It's an immediate defense. And that creates a juggernaut because there is a real fear of litigation. District administrators are they're paralyzed a lot of time by the threat of lawsuits, or what is worse than a lawsuit is viral social media posts. We have these things down here, and I don't know if you guys have them wherever you are, but we have these things on Facebook called like word of mouth. And it's where people go on there and they just share a bunch of garbage. They say things that aren't true about people. They say things about businesses that aren't true. I think that fear is worse than the fear of litigation. But that fear of litigation and the fear of social media call out, it trickles into the classroom. And so when a parent threatens to call a lawyer, or when a parent threatens to call the board, or when a parent goes on social media over a grade or over disciplinary action, the system's default response, it's a default response to cave in rather than to support a teacher's professional judgment. And so what that causes in us is it causes the CYA tax, all right? The cover your assets tax. And it causes teachers to spend hours upon hours every single week with what I would like to call defensive documentation. Every email, every minor correction, and every grade and everything you do needs to be logged with precision for fear of the repercussions of a parent that simply cannot see anything wrong with what their student does. And that CYA asset, it has a hidden tax on instruction, because every minute you spend documenting your CYA to protect your job, that's a minute that you can't spend on a lesson plan. That's a minute that you can't spend grading. That's a minute that you can't spend helping another student. And that's another minute that you can't spend taking care of your overall health. And I still say the number one thing that you can give to your students and to your school is the most healthiest version of yourself possible. And that is why education is about to crumble. It's like a Jenga game. You just pull out one block here, one block there, and before long, somebody pulls out the last block and the whole thing collapses. And who does it collapse on? It collapses on the teacher. So if you want to know about other things that teachers struggle with that are undermining them, their health, their ability to teach, then check out these videos right here. But more than that, until we see you again, stay strong and keep teaching.